everyone, let me first get this out of the way. I have a little bit of a different setup today because I have listened to the constructive criticism that some people have given, and I'm hoping that this might work out a little better. I was a little bit worried about this not being a completely white background, but I personally do like it when some people film with their house in the back. It's kind of fun. It's like, oh, getting to sit down and listen to what they have to say, so I don't know, maybe some people feel that way. I'm also wanting to do this because it's a little bit more on my face as opposed to looking up or looking down at the camera, which, again, constructive criticism that I've received. Also, my computer's right here, and a lot of times I do type out a reply to somebody and say, maybe that will make a good video, and it makes it a little easier having this here for reference, especially when people ask me a video because my channel is a Q&A channel. Anyway, lately I've been talking with a Muslim, or maybe it's many Muslims that are all asking the same thing. I'm not really sure because it's anonymous on my Ask.fm account. Anyway, this person or persons has been basically trying to convince me that God is real because, of course, as long as I pray to God with an open and honest heart, then God will respond to me. And if I just give him a chance, God will love me and respond to me. And as long as I read the religious text, I can see that beyond the shadow of a doubt, it is true and without error. And for those of you listening, as a reminder, yes, this is a Muslim, not a Christian. I know they tend to sound pretty similar. Anyway, a lot of times Muslims, and this Muslim in particular, brought up that if there's one thing that's wrong in the Quran, then the whole Quran is wrong. We can just throw the whole thing out. And that's why I don't like to argue a big list of things in the Quran like some other atheists do, but instead I just bring up one thing. The Quran says that there's a barrier that Allah had placed between the salt and sweet, or salt and fresh waters, and they do not mix. Well, brackish water exists because there's no barrier between salt and fresh waters. Now for me, I thought that was kind of a slam dunk response, but well, apparently it isn't, and we're going to kind of get into that as we go here. So anyway, since you carve logic and logical stuff, I think that person meant crave, watch his video, there's a link, Evolution, Atheism, and Islam by Yusuf Estes, and especially watch this minute, 38:18. He talks about the issue of the two seas, one salty and one fresh, that don't mix, mentioned in the Quran. Well, I decided to check out 38:18 by checking out 38, and at that point that I heard something that I had heard before, and it was about the mountains being pegs. The Quran calls them pegs, like tent pegs that go into the ground. And I just wanted to hear what an apologist had to say about this, so I went all the way back to 36, so I know I'm giving a lot of extra time here. Well, at 37:14, there was something that was said that was a little bit strange, which was the only way that we can investigate the Earth, which was specified from the geology up to the atmosphere, is if Allah has given us authority. That just seemed like a really strange claim to me because it seems very easy to disprove. Go be a geologist and don't ask Allah for authority. And you can still be a geologist, I promise you. You can still go find some things. And in fact, some of the discoveries that we found were either made by Christians or from people that were living in a time that was predominantly Christian, or an area that was predominantly Christian. They didn't ask Allah. Same thing when we discovered the different layers of the atmosphere. Nobody asked for authority. Now, maybe it was saying that Allah has given us authority over the earth, which kind of means that he doesn't have authority over the earth. But then if you read about the jinn, it seems like they have way more authority than we do because they have so much more ability than we do. So it seems like a weird claim either way. If anybody can explain this for me, feel free to, send it or post it, whatever you want to do. This is in no way is contingent on, me becoming a Muslim or not. So I'm just thought it was a weird statement. If anybody can clear it up, please do. In 38:00 minute marker, is that what they call a minute marker? That's where he starts talking about the tent peg mountains going deep, deep, deep into the earth. He says that this wasn't discovered until about 100 years ago, and I'm assuming he was talking about plate tectonics, which, if you're going to talk about plate tectonics, then you realize that the mountains are not tent pegs that go deep, deep down into the earth. The mountains are part of the crust. That I don't know. I mean, I don't want to assume that he's so stupid he doesn't understand this, or that he's just forcing it to fit his understanding of the Quran because he's already, Muslim. But that just seems like something you can figure out after taking like 8th grade or 9th grade science, even in, the United States' less than spectacular public education system. I mean, to suggest that the mountains blast through the earth as if they weren't part of the crust, I mean, that's totally ignorant how mountains are formed. And even if you want to give that an extinct volcano is a mountain, so it doesn't have to do with the plate boundaries forcing up a mountain range, but instead you can create a mountain with a hot spot, and then the plate will move away from the hot spot, and now it's an extinct volcano. And if you want to call that a mountain too, fine, but it's still not a peg that goes into the earth. It's still part of the crust. And then if it keeps going into the earth, it hits the magma, and it's not a mountain anymore. So it doesn't seem to make any sense at all to me. Can somebody, explain this? When I read it in the Quran, it was one of those things that I used, and I said, yes, this is another example of the Quran being wrong. But, like I said, I just narrowed it down to just the water issue. But hearing it from an apologist it doesn't make any more sense. It doesn't, even to cite the discovery of plate tectonics, it makes even less sense. Because if you know anything about plate tectonics, you'll know that this is not some special, separate thing. This is the crust. It's part of the crust. It's not a tent peg holding the crust. It still moves. Everything still moves because of plate tectonics. I don't understand. Anyway, so 3818 is where this person had pointed me, and it says that the seas don't mix, and it mentioned specifically, he said the Atlantic meeting the Mediterranean, and they don't mix because they're different salinities and different densities, which is what I had mentioned before. And if this is the same Muslim that's talking to me on Twitter, then this person and other Muslims in the past have also told me this too. It's not talking about everything, it's just talking about this one particular spot. It's not all of the oceans and all of the seas and all of the rivers. It's just this one spot, these two seas that come together, and Allah has put a barrier between them. If that's the case, well, first of all, that's not any kind of divine revelation that, look, there's two seas that don't appear to mix. I mean, that's a bit strange to suggest that it had to come from a divine revelation for people who lived around the Mediterranean to make an observation about the Mediterranean. That just seems kind of silly, doesn't it? It's an assumption that those people made, same as, any other religious person makes different kinds of assumptions, but it's an assumption that they made that this was a barrier that was put there by a god, and it would just emphasize that it was just made out of ignorance, just sort of like, well, the only reason that birds can stay in the air is if God can hold them up, for example. It's just some people making an observation and attributing it to a god because they simply didn't know at the time that these two things do come together, homeostasis, blah, blah, blah. But then the guy, Mr. Estes, does mention different salinity and density, which again is what I always mention. The problem is, if you give them time, they mix. That's it. And if you disagree with me, go take a big cup and put it exactly down the middle where the two mix, scoop it up, and see if they stay separate. If they stay separate, please make a video about it. I would love to see it. Give me a call. I will totally fly out there and do it myself. That sounds awesome. I can get some delicious hummus while I'm out there. And, let's check it out. But I don't think that'll happen. And if there's a barrier between them that Allah had placed, then of course the barrier would still be in existence, right? Or is it only in existence if the two seas are together? And again, if you give them enough time, they are going to mix. That's how things work. That's how we have the wind. It's because of the hot air and the cold air and their exchanges. They're trying to reach some kind of temperature, homeostasis. And we have water that we have, bottled water, for example. Some of it is made through reverse osmosis, which can only be done because of this. And so it doesn't... Again, I feel like I'm insulting people's intelligence by saying this stuff because this is stuff that it's so basic, and I learned this in high school, and then I went on and, had to relearn it again and learn more about it in university for my major. So this just seems like really basic stuff to me. And again, as soon as I opened up the Quran and read through it, I said, well, of course this is wrong. You know, I already know this is wrong because I've already learned this stuff and this is factually incorrect. But these people don't seem to know that. So anyway, so in just over a minute, this guy rattled off 3 distinctly wrong, very strange claims. So if you guys want to say anything about it, feel free to post it in the comments section below. You can contact me a bunch of different ways, which is in the details section below. Post it straight to my channel. But as always, thanks for listening.